So I wanted to jump on here for a bit of NBA talk. We're in the middle of the 2025 playoffs right now, and I just wanted to speak my mind about it a little bit. It's always fun to try to guess who goes to the finals or which teams are going to make it how far. Guessing from the regular season or from previous postseasons as well. But this year, at this point, by the way, we're only in the first round. Only one team's advanced, and that's OKC. But I think this year's pretty much set in stone, to be honest. Barring any major injuries, I think the finals matchup is pretty much solidified. So I wanted to get this out there. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But if I guess it right, then I've got a bit of bragging rights. So the East is kind of tricky because it's two top-heavy teams. It's really between Boston or Cleveland who's going to make the finals, to be honest. There's a few underdogs. I would say Indiana maybe have a run. Maybe New York, possibly. But we've seen in the past that New York haven't been able to get past Boston. And I think Boston might be the leading favourites. Although I do have faith in Cleveland because I would rather see Cleveland win over Boston. That being said though, so let's say Boston or Cleveland out the East. I think the West isn't even going to be close at this point. And keeping in mind, I'm a Denver fan more than anything. I've had full faith in Denver for years. The 2023 championship was a special moment. However, this year, if I'm to be unbiased, I think OKC are just going to walk to the finals. Now, in this point of time, they just swept Memphis. It's pretty easy to say that now that they're the only team that's made it out of the first round already. But I think it goes deeper than that. If you match up each team by the strengths and weaknesses, it's pretty clear that OKC just are ahead above everybody, really. So the only other contenders out west, and it's pretty competitive to be fair, it's one of the more competitive conferences we've seen in a while, given that the only team that didn't really stand a chance was the 8th seed in Memphis. But even the 7 seed Warriors are currently up 2-1 on Houston, who are the 2nd seed. The Timberwolves and the Lakers was pretty close, but at the moment Timberwolves are looking like a much better team, even though the Lakers were the favourite actually heading into that. And then the Nuggets Clippers is neck and neck. Every game of that has been super close except for game 3, which Clippers took. But we had like the buzzer beating dunk by Gordon. That's been a really fun series to watch, and whoever wins that actually matches up against OKC. Keeping in mind that OKC at that point will be very well rested. Probably would have had a week off by that point. That being said, I don't think any team matches up to this OKC team. I mean, they've just dismantled Memphis. The closest game Memphis had was that game 4, and that was without Ja. They had Scottie Pippen Jr. as their best player, pretty much. And that was a close game. However, that was OKC's worst showing. They didn't even shoot well. All series, SGA hasn't even been that good. J-Dubs looked better than he has at some points. They were still beating Memphis by, one game they beat them by 50 points. I think game 1 was about 50 points. One of the biggest victories in playoff history. I think it may have been the biggest. I haven't researched that. Either way, they've kind of just destroyed Memphis. And Memphis weren't the best team. Memphis were probably the weakest team in the West, so it doesn't say a whole lot. Memphis had the highest turnovers per game in a playoff series in history, mainly because of OKC's defense. The one thing I think they have over every other West team is the depth of their team. You know, some teams have a good bench. In Houston, you've got Tyrese and Amen Thompson coming off of the bench. They're pretty solid, although we've seen, I think, the inexperience of Houston's kind of catching up to them. They seem to be fumbling all the games against Golden State early on. But the rest of the teams don't really have the depth to match that. OKC also doesn't have the experience, similar sort of thing as Houston, but I think they're going to triumph over that. That's kind of the one weakness of OKC is their inexperience, really. But a lot of the guys on the team have been in the playoffs, and last year they made it to the second round as well with pretty much the same team. And Caruso, I think Caruso was on the championship Lakers. So I don't think inexperience is going to be a major factor, but everything else that they have on their team, it just blows out the competition. So their depth, I mean, you look at the other teams, Denver's pretty much just their starters. Westbrook gets some run off the bench, but the rest of the bench isn't doing much. Peyton Watson is almost unplayable because of his offense. Peyton Watson, Jalen Pickett, and Westbrook are pretty much the only people off the bench that get any run. If you look at Golden State, outside of Steph and Jimmy, they don't really have another offensive weapon. I mean, who's your third option? And Jimmy Butler's injured now as well, so who's their second option? Who's going to get you a bucket, really? I mean, Buddy Hield's not shooting great, and their bench in general isn't great either. I don't have a whole lot of faith in Steph and Jimmy carrying that team past teams that are a lot stronger. The Timberwolves are pretty solid though. They're running DiVincenzo off the bench and Naz Reid off the bench. They've been playing great. but I don't know if we've seen them at their best as of yet. Anthony Edwards has had a couple good games early on, but Rudy Gobert has looked pretty bad, honestly. One of his worst offensive showings so far in the first round of the playoffs. Julius Randle's 50-50 most of the time. Jaden McDaniels has looked good. So Minnesota, I think, is up there with one of the top contenders with the West with OKC. I mean, the Lakers are showing their weakness against the Timberwolves right now. They don't have a center. They're running Dorian Finney-Smith at the center. And the Timberwolves are a big team, but so are OKC. OKC have Chet and Hartenstein in the starting lineup. And that height is going to be a massive factor because that height also helps them against the other bigger teams. Like Denver, when you can throw Chet and Hartenstein at Jokic. Or Minnesota, when you pretty much have Hartenstein play rim protection when Gobert's on the court because he's not much of a threat. Who even matches up well against OKC? Potentially Minnesota. I think they've got a pretty similar team structure in terms of having two bigs, one of which can shoot well, and then you've got a guard who takes on most of the scoring. And then outside of Minnesota, potentially the Clippers. Assuming the Clippers get out of that first round with Denver, I don't know how Denver matches up against them. I think OKC's defense is too good. Denver look clumsy at times. If they can... I mean, Jokic is unstoppable. Having the interior defense that they do have and the flexibility on defense, I'm not sure how Denver was stand up against them, really. Denver kind of relies on Jokic being able to find the open three or the open backdoor cut. But in the first round against LA, you don't have guys like Lou Dort or Alex Caruso watching those passing lanes. Chris Dunn's a great defender, and the Clippers are a great defensive matchup for Denver in general, but I think somehow OKC tops that when you look at it matchup to matchup. And then if the Clippers were to face against the Thunder, you kind of have to rely on Harden and Kawhi's offensive power to carry, especially in clutch moments. And I think Kawhi is one of the most clutch players in the league, to be fair. But once again, OKC have enough to throw at him to throw him off his game. We wouldn't be able to completely shut him down. All it takes is shutting down the people around him. One player can't take out a team by themselves, which we see with Jokic. Whenever he has a great offensive scoring game, the team usually loses because the defense has managed to stop him from involving other people. And then if you look at Memphis, some of their top players just have had a horrendous series, like played awful. Jaren Jackson Jr. averaged twice as many turnovers as assists, shot like 43, 48 true shooting for a big, and averaged 16 points, I believe. And of course, the interior defense is a big factor to that. Another big thing was Alex Caruso's defense on him, the guard. His ability to front him and pick the pocket really shut him down. You know, all it takes is a big to front on another big, such as Jaren Jackson, Jokic, Zubac, whoever it might be. OKC are flexible enough and quick enough for there to be another defender to hassle them, whether it be Dort or Caruso usually. Even Cason Wallace. I mean, Cason Wallace and SGA average almost two steals a game. I think statistically it's one of the best defenses in history. Does any team have the offensive firepower to get through that? I don't think so, at least not this year really. Most teams are top heavy, being carried by a star, which has worked in the past. All you need is one great player to take you to a certain distance. You know, last year, look at maybe Luka, and he did have Kyrie, but Luka made the team around him much better. But look at Luka this series, they're struggling against a team that has size and has depth in the form of Minnesota. And I think times are changing in that way, that this team has so much chemistry, works in unity in a way that a star power like Jokic or Kawhi wouldn't be able to single-handedly take that all on. So I suppose all that being said, the team that matches up on paper best against OKC, or at least matches their formation in a way, is Minnesota. But if you go head-to-head, would Minnesota have the defense and have the offense, but is either side of the ball even on par with OKC's? I mean, SGA is a dude averaging 32 points in the regular season on insane efficiency. J-Dub in the first round has shown what he can do on offense. And then we saw towards the end of the regular season that any of the guys off the bench could just come and give you a bucket. Aaron Wiggins had a 30-something point game at the end of the season. Jalen Williams had a triple-double. That's the other Jalen Williams. Kenrick Williams is still on the team, having his hustle moments. He probably only plays a couple minutes a game. If it's a close game, he might not play at all, really. OKC took out Memphis in Game 4. It was a close one by 2 points. Came down to SGA's last shot of the game. But OKC had 11 players touch the court today, which if it was a regular season game may not be a big deal, but in the playoffs we see teams restrict the amount of people that coaches cut down on the amount of players that touch the court. For example, the Lakers just went down 3-1 to the Timberwolves, and given it was a close game, they entirely relied on a single lineup of Luka, LeBron, Austin Reeves, Hachimura, and Dorian Finney-Smith. Each of them played 40 plus minutes, and you could tell that they were running out of energy. Like they were puffed out. And again, as a Denver fan, I see the same thing with Denver as well. They don't have a lot of players off the bench. They get a lot of run. You kind of want people to be able to come onto the court with fresh legs, keep the energy of the game going. But not a lot of teams have that. Most other teams in the West have a couple players. Minnesota with DiVincenzo, who kind of gets more play than Conley does anyway, and Naz Reid obviously, so they have the ability to change who's in the closing lineups depending on who's playing well. Houston I mentioned with the 2 guys off the bench, and Steven Adams as well. But 11 players, 6 bench players. Did the 6 bench players contribute? I mean, for the most part, yeah. You have Jalen Williams and Kendrick Williams played 4 minutes and 2 minutes, so they didn't really contribute a whole lot. I'm surprised they got play. But outside of those two, we're talking Isaiah Joe, who comes on and is an elite shooter at this point. Aaron Wiggins is a bucket, and he's got length and size on the defensive end as well. Cason Wallace, same sort of thing. The guy averages 2 steals a game, and he's not an offensive liability at that either. And then Alex Caruso, unsung hero, who one of the best examples of a player whose stats don't actually show his impact. Always bringing hustle, defends every position somehow despite his size. And that's just their bench players. I mean, they're not gassing out their guys. Like Jalen Williams and SGA played 38 minutes. But outside of that, nobody else played 30 plus minutes. Like the minutes were shared around. Look at a team like the Knicks where pretty much every starter plays near 48 minutes. They usually only have 1 or 2 guys actually come off the bench. And you see that catch up with them. Last year when the Knicks got knocked out, it's because they looked like they were just out of gas. But they keep playing that way. And a lot of teams do play that way. They just rely on their stars to play every minute of the game. With Denver, if Jokic goes out the court, they drop down by 10 points. There, you got to put him back in. Same with LeBron, Luka, and the Lakers. The Warriors as well. I mean, without Steph and Jimmy Butler, they don't really have a whole lot to help them on offense at least. And actually looking at it now, OKC are the favourite to win the championship, and I think it's fair to see how so. Closely followed by the Celtics, and then not so closely followed by the Cavs. And the Warriors, surprisingly, I'm looking at ESPN tab betting, the Warriors have the 4th highest chance, which I think is people have enough faith in Steph and Jimmy Butler to completely carry that team. I'm just imagine the Warriors coming up against OKC, what matchups you're going to get. The perimeter defense, you got Caruso and Dort who can cover Steph. You probably have to double him. You know, Steph's unstoppable. If you throw doubles at him, at least it forces him to pass. If you're OKC, you would live with that. You'd make up enough points to be able to cover whoever's shooting for Golden State outside of Steph. And if you put a body or 2 on Jimmy as well. Again, I think Dort would get the Jimmy Butler matchup. SGA, Cason Wallace, Alex Caruso would see the Steph Curry matchup. And even if they hunted for the mismatch through pick and roll and try to get maybe Hartenstein or Chet on Stephen Curry, OKC might be able to just double team that or be able to recover on defense. Because if you throw a double at Stephen Curry, he'll try to find the open shot, but then you're playing with Draymond Green, Moses Moody shooting threes, Gary Payton shooting threes, or whatever it might be. I think the defense is solid enough to recover for whatever double team might leave open for Golden State. But then on offense, I mean, who's stopping? Or you put Gary Payton on SGA. SGA's got the size advantage there. You can put Draymond on him, but then you've still got offensive weapons. I mean, the Warriors, I think, are too small as well. They have the same issue as the Lakers, where small ball, I don't think, is going to win in this playoffs. There's too many teams that are too big. They're running the 2 big man lineups. Bigs can shoot, you know. Chet's a shooter. Doesn't detriment your team if the 2 bigs are mobile enough and can shoot. You're not really going to lose out on having 2 big bodies for the defensive end to be able to rim protect and rebound. Yeah, so that was my ramble. Look, I'm not an OKC fan. I'm still hanging out for Denver, but OKC is an up-and-coming team who I mean, the time is really now for it. I think they pretty much cruise to the finals, honestly. Like, there might be a few matchups that give them a run. I mean, the toughest matchup in the grand scheme of things would be the Celtics, assuming both teams made it to the finals. Now, that one is a bit trickier. Celtics is just such a complete team. They're the reigning champions. They've already proven there's no questions about inexperience. I mean, yeah, they've got so many offensive weapons. That one, honestly, is a toss-up. Just looking at it matchup-wise, there's not really any advantages, disadvantages. It's a pretty even match. If you get an OKC Boston finals, I think that would be a good series. I mean, imagine seeing a finals go to a Game 7. It's been a while. But yeah, that's my 2 cents on it. The playoffs move quickly. It's probably only going to be like, a month by the time that the finals come around. So a lot can change. OKC could get bumped in the second round by the Clippers. You never know. All it takes is Kawhi Leonard to be on an absolute heater, and defense doesn't even matter anymore. So you never really know. But yeah, that's all from me. So I'm out of here.